All right, welcome back. We're in the alligator pit, and we got a live open discussion. Just want to salute everybody out there and thank you for the support. So next week, we know we got this election coming up, and America is going to have a lot of changes. Some people may be nervous. Some people may see a lot of prosperity in their future. But we want to just take this video to talk about American history, the original American. I got a good article that I want to read from, show you an image. And before we do that, I want to show you some of my brother ClayCo Ryan's products, that pertain to the subject. He has an American Indian shirt right here. And on the back, he has a text as it pertains to the $5 Indian and how, foreigners were able to pay $5 to buy our nationality and inheritance. And also a book that the brother has right here with an American Indian image on the front, which I actually believe is the history of Georgia down in Savannah. So we just, going through so-called Black Americans' true history. And the whole purpose is just to get some enlightenment from it, and learn something real quick. So the subject of this video is we're going to talk about Chief Saturiwa, and he was the chief of the Timucua Indian down in Florida in the early 1500s. So when some of the early Europeans came, the French, and they set up these colonies in America, a lot of us think that they came just guns blazing, but there was actually indigenous chiefs here that they had to break bread and do business with. These chiefs would either lease them some land or, they could pay rent for the land. But in other words, they didn't just come here and force themselves on the land and set up the 13 colonies.
No, sir.
So this is one of the images right here of Chief Saturiwa that we're going to talk about. And I have an article that we're going to read, which goes into some of the details and descriptions of this sculpture that was actually made, when it was made, who it was made for. And ultimately, the point of the video really is to show that human beings usually are labeled or they identify themselves as an ethnicity and nationality. And the term Black really is not a true ethnicity. American is our true nationality, but Black isn't the true ethnicity. So as it pertains to the ethnicity, there are a lot of words used throughout time. Sometimes you may have had the word Negro used to describe our people, or sometimes you may have had the word Moor used to describe our people, but either way it goes, they still are talking about the original indigenous American, which actually looked like this, all right? There's actually a brother that me and ClayCo Ryan grew up with, that looks just like this, but this is an image of an American Indian chief. So one of the jewels that you get in this video is that a lot of our people were already indigenous to the Americas, and our ancestors look like we look today, except they were, they were the Creek Indian or the Seminole or the Yamasee, all these different tribes. A lot of our grandparents, you may have even heard that you have some American Indian ancestry, or you may have had a great aunt that had certain features, so maybe she talked about herself being a Blackfoot or something. Especially most of us that are from the South, we have some type of a history with that. So, before we move forward, we're just showing the images. This is one of the chiefs. And as you can see, he doesn't look like a so-called slave. He's wearing gold, he has emerald. He looked like he's running shit, basically. So when we talk about making America great again, we're not talking about a Donald Trump America. We're talking about, so-called Black Americans learning who they are and using that to do business and using the history as a glue where we can, identify with each other with that. We may be from different states, different cities, but we all do have the same history for the majority, all right? So the resource that I'm reading from is called The Graphic Sources for the Moor with the Emerald Cluster. Now, a lot of us have seen that image that I've shown, especially if you are hip to some of this history. Instagram has a lot of different images that pop up, Facebook, people use it for thumbnails, but now we're gonna just read an article on some of the background history to this image. So it's called The Graphic Sources for the Moor with the Emerald Cluster, and it was written by someone named Helmut Nickel, and this person is a curator of arms and armor at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So the author is Helmut Nickel, a curator of arms and armor at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And as I said, I'm gonna leave the link to this same article in the description so you can read it on your own and do your own further investigation. And also so you can examine the sculpture of the quote unquote Moor with the Emerald Cluster much better. And as you'll see that he looks just like a so-called Black man that may be your neighbor. Or if he was walking down the street today, on Metropolitan or walking downtown, he would just look like a regular so-called Black person. So let's read, a few segments in this. So right now we're gonna read describing this statue. So the first thing is the author calls him a Moor. Now remember we said Moor is a term that just pertains to someone's ethnicity. It may not denote where they live nationally or which geographical continent they live on. So the first thing to remember is that sometimes they're gonna call the American Indian a Negro, sometimes they're gonna call the American Indian a Moor, and sometimes they're gonna call them a black person or a nigger even. But this is what a lot of European so-called scholars and people that are into literature, they would use these terms to identify and label our people. So let's read. The Moor is represented as a muscular youth in swaggering stride. He is carved from pear wood and lacquered a deep brown. His broadly smiling face with its wide blunt nose and full lips is clearly meant to be that of a Negro, but his curly hair is, when seen from the front, almost entirely hidden by a jeweled gold feather crown of a type generally associated with romantic images of American Indians. The Moor's dark brown skin is covered on arms, legs, and body with intricate tattoos meticulously produced by thousands of tiny dots of blue-black lacquer paint. So let's go back to the image. So this is the person that they're describing as a Moor, but they also calling them an American Negro. Now the color that he was painted is that dark brown paint. Lacquer is like a type of finish that they put on wood or furniture, it's like a finisher. So when you see his complexion, he's a dark bronze complexion. If you look up the 1828 Webster's Dictionary definition of the word American, they're gonna say an indigenous person from the copper-colored races. So so-called Black Americans, we come in different forms of copper, various shades of brown. But my hoodie is actually black, which don't look like our skin tone at all. So just think about how a penny looks. A penny is very similar to our skin tone, it's copper. So the indigenous people are always described as copper or a dark bronze, but then it ended up being black.
And boss, let me ask a question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Why was that penny copper color? Why is the man on the penny copper color?
Could it have been because Abraham Lincoln was a copper-colored man? And he may not be that false image we see on the $5 bill. Just like a lot of these so-called presidents and the founding fathers. Most of the founding fathers and had Scottish ancestry or Welsh ancestry, and these were melanated people or bronze complexion or copper-colored people coming from Europe. So not only was the indigenous American so-called black, but even the Europeans that established the 13 colonies, they were also so-called black. So, to answer the brother ClayCo Ryan's question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for the teaching today, man.
Yes, sir. So the last thing we're gonna read in this article is just one more part where, because Saturiwa, if you look at the image, he has these different intricate designs on him or tattoos. Now, I'm not sitting here advocating and saying somebody's supposed to get tattoos, but when you see so-called Black Americans doing it, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but the ancient American Indian, they had a culture like that as well. So the last thing I want to read is just a little bit more description on this image. So we have right here, and also there are a lot of different paintings, and one of them is called The Splendor of Dresden. In The Splendor of Dresden, it is mentioned that the Moor's tattoos and feather crown were taken from contemporary illustrations of travel accounts, and that the figure is supposed to represent an American Indian. So these Europeans, when they was traveling throughout the South, when they came to the Americas, they would take notes and had diaries, and they would detail the things that they saw. They would detail, some of the monuments and the structure. They would talk about the language of the indigenous people, what they used to eat, what they used to wear, but they also would talk about how they looked. And in a lot of those notes in literatures and those journals, they describe the indigenous people as Negro, as a Moor, like these are the terms they use, but they talking about so-called Black Americans that were here in the early 1500s. See that so-called slave narrative that teaches, they say that we were brought over here in the 1600s, but Chief Saturiwa, he was ruling in the early 1500s. And look at all the gold and the emeralds and the jewels he have. Do you think that this man been here only a couple of years? Or do it look like he been here for a while to get all this? And he ran all of what we call modern day Northern Florida. So now we have an image of a true American chief that we could say was a leader here, because we all know about King Tut, but our people are not from Egypt. So now we just, learn about somebody that's actually American, and you got some pride in that. So before we conclude the video, there is one thing I want to ask the brother ClayCo Ryan, and he can, share his wisdom on it with us. But we were talking the other day, and he made a comment about something he saw in that movie as it pertains to the flower moon. So I just wanted him to, give us some game on that real quick.
I was telling my brother, I'm gonna just not give too much of a background on me, man. My grandfather was a brick mason. He was also a fraternal mason. Kind of how I grew up already kind of knowing about kind of the conversations we grew up on. Like, I learned about Noble Drew Ali as a young kid. I didn't learn about him like older. Like, I was when the Illuminati and all that stuff was coming out. Like, I was already hip to the Shriners and all that type of shit, because the occult was just something that I was just very familiar with. So when I see the movie The Flower Moon, one thing they say about the devil is that they gotta tell you the truth.
Right.
Because the devil, the devil is like, by God, if we think about it like that, he's giving out the CRCT. So that's the exam. That's the final exam we all gotta take to get off of here in a spiritual sense. Right. So when I see the movie, man, I love the movie because it was one of Robert De Niro's one last movie. He's played a lot of things in his time, Italian mobster, but he's also played a cultist in a lot of movies. Another one was Shepherd. What was it called? My Good Shepherd.
What role did Robert De Niro play in The Flower Moon? What was his character?
Okay, yeah, he played a 33rd degree Mason. But more so than that, in the movie is the finesse on how to take the land from the people. At the same time this movie is being filmed, the Tulsa race massacres is happening. Right when they're giving diabetes to the Native Americans and marrying in their family and getting their endowment from the U.S. government. Just to end off, man, I just say Black Wall Street, also known as the Greenwood District, began in the 1830s. 1921 to June 1st, 1921 is when it ended. The Trail of Tears started in 1831 and ended in 1850 from the people migrating from the southeast, places like Arkansas, all over, even the Smoky Mountains. So when we starting to really, kind of understand what the brothers enlighten us to, it's a history that, the sad part, you're not gonna get taught this in school. So, man, this man right here is very special for what he's doing. He's an author and a teacher. So, what he's talking about is not up for debate.
No, we don't do debate. A lot of debate stuff is for entertainment. It's for people to make profit, and I understand that. But you come up with a better way to do it. Because a lot of what we're doing, me, ClayCo Ryan, a lot of other brothers that's, part of, it's really just making America great again. And we may do it through music, clothing lines, books, movies, but it's really just to bring back our own culture and history and, and as I said in the beginning, use our history as the glue to each other. Because all those other superficial things are like the money or what clique you from or what gang you from, what city or state, a lot of that stuff gonna divide you. Even with religion, you may have a different understanding of the Almighty. But one thing we can all agree on is that we all may have had that grandmother or grandfather or somebody that owned land in the South or somebody that you knew was a farmer or something like that, because the American Indians were farmers. We were the only ones that knew how to grow things here. Even to this day, it's still like that. So, yeah, we're gonna make America great by using the true history to, come together with those of us that have a like mind and a like spirit. Because a lot of our people, they really are thrown off.
Professor, can you, before you, kind of end, the gangs in California, I think that's been a big talk. People like Ice-T with colors and so forth. Right. Even the crack epidemic and Reagan linking up with the Bloods and the Crips. Can you tell us kind of like, is gang banging is it similar to the tribal wars they used to go with?
Yeah, it is. It's the exact same thing. Yeah, you good, bro. It's it's the exact same thing. You know, anytime you have some men that want to come to a united front and they have different activities, some of them may be commercial, hunting, business, but it just becomes toxic when it's more like internal violence and civil war violence. So with the street aspect, that's what the issues are. It's not even the fact that people may have a red flag or a blue flag. It's more so, you know, the violence towards each other. But yeah, it's tribal violence, and that's how we lost a lot of our stuff here. Instead of us knowing, okay, I may be the Choctaw, they may be the Cherokee, they may be the, you know, the Shawnee, but we all are Americans. So we're not gonna let these little tribal differences keep us apart. So when we start getting invaded by foreigners, we can come together as Americans and defend the whole front. So that's the same if we in LA and I'm from, you know, the Inglewood Bloods and this person's from the Rolling 60s, you know, that, yeah, but y'all still both are Americans though at the end of the day. You know, it's just in the medieval period, we may have called ourselves, like I say, the Upper Creek and the Lower Creek. Today you may be saying GDs and BDs. So it's not even really the names, it's more so the activity. And you know, we get caught vulnerable when we separate it like that.
There's also why gentrification is a big problem, because this whole thing we're talking about from the Europeans coming is gentrification on a mass scale, and gentrification happens over time. It's like the thing they say you want to do something, how they kind of did things. They tested the frogs' pain level. They just put them in a pot of boiling water and just you turn it up slightly. You don't notice it. So when we see gentrification happen so systematically, that, you know, the black people have to assimilate. When you assimilate, you kind of bow to the rules of the civilization you in.
Exactly.
So gentrification is one of them things you see it coming around the way I used to heard of when I found out my grandmama was neighbor was it start like this. You wake up one morning and somebody's asking for sugar. You wake up the next morning, it's the Dollar Tree, it's the Dollar General, and you keep waking up, it's a Walmart. Every day you come out, it's something new, and then it becomes a way of life because you start to use the Walmart.
Right, and I'm also add this too, man, because you was talking about the Black Wall Street and stuff. See, we have to have a Black Wall Street psychology. It's not a geographic region. We don't need to be thinking about Black Wall Street was located in Tulsa, Oklahoma. No. Black Wall Street is wherever the American Indian people are, and we make a conscious decision to rock with each other. And, you know, if we have some outside infiltration, then the tribes will come together under our one banner, you know, as Americans. You know, like right now, this is Black Wall Street. We sit in my brother ClayCo Ryan's studio, you know what I'm saying? He got his business partners with him. You know, these brothers like got fashion going on. Like, it's so much stuff we going on. We doing Black Wall Street right now. And that's another thing, like the small businesses, we just got to come together. We got to have pride in our stuff. Like every LLC started something on a sheet of paper, and then eventually it may be a tall skyscraper downtown, but if you don't have that same mindset when your LLC is just a sheet of paper and you don't have that same faith in it and love for it as if it was a skyscraper, it ain't gonna turn into nothing. So yeah, that's all it is. Like all of us independent entrepreneurs, you know, coming together and not letting the tribal distinctions and affiliations block us up. You know, and that's our main issue though, I would say. We let our tribal differences block us. That tribal difference could be like the money, it could be a religion, it could be a gang or where you're from, or any other type of phenomenon that could divide humans up. We let that shit divide us. And then all the enemy do is come in. That's why you said on the Flower Moon, that's how they steal the land, through infiltration, but a lot of it is also through marriage infiltration. Because, you know, the American Indians, let's just say that a lot of assets, the females had a prominent role in society. So when a foreigner would come here and marry an American Indian woman, that's how now he has access to the land. Then he sets up the West, what's that shit called? The West Indies Company or something like that. Yeah. So now he sets up. Remember, they were setting up LLCs in the 1500s, the 1600s. The 13 colonies wasn't nothing but an LLC. It was 13 different LLCs that was under one banner that eventually they called the United States. But that's why we have the federal government and then you have states' rights. Because these states are really, like Georgia really is a country. Like we look at it as a state, it's really a country.
And it's really a company, yeah.
So we need to just be on our own form of that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but even with women, I think one thing you notice about in America too, man, women hold a lot of wealth. Just from the fact, like, from then, how, you know, people married in with the woman to get, like, you know, to claim a lot.
Yeah.
You got people now, I mean, you got women, for a kid, they gonna, however many kids they got from the government, they gonna get a check.
These modern women are Babylonian.
Yeah.
What's going on is that the United States is a foreign entity. And a foreign entity, the way it can control and subjugate a land is it got to figure out a way to box the men out that are from that land. And one of the ways you do that is you empower the women from that land to create a divide in them. So those women don't really have to, you know, look to those men for resources and protection. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? On a national level. Like, there's nothing wrong with, like, if an individual a so-called black woman, you know, is individually doing her thing. But the fact that she don't have, like, a nation behind her, this government don't give a fuck how much money she got.
Nah, we don't play devil's advocate, man. Some of the niggas gotta get on the ball, though, man.
The niggas too, yeah, it's the men and the women.
Yeah,
we ain't playing that. Yeah, it's certain things the men gotta do and the women.
You man, I know I do personally know some women who out here just, man, and my partners, my personal partners, they in the club.
Facts, yeah.
They out.
Yeah.
Baby girl home sick. She home, you know, the kids fucked up at home, and the money at home, and he out. You know what I'm saying? So I think
I ain't gonna lie too though, bro. Like, this shit gonna sound a certain type of way, and I'm okay with that, but this is why Adolf Hitler and them had that eugenics type mindset, bro. Because when, like what you talking about, you know, once a man create responsibilities and he gotta be accountable for it, maturity is what leads you to do that. And it's not easy being a man when you lead a family and stuff like that. So when you see guys not doing that, that's being immature and not being accountable. And the truth is that, you know, like I said, this gonna sound a certain way, but you know, that weaken your nation. You know, really the men in your nation that's about their shit, you know, them the guys you want procreating. But we in a condition now where, from what I see, a lot of brothers that be having their shit going on, you know, they only have children. But a lot of irresponsible guys do. So yeah, it's a mixture with that, man.
Yeah.
It's just facts. Like sometimes it be the wrong people having children. You know, and I don't mean to be like nasty, but it's just facts. Everybody like has the ability to have a child, but that don't mean you may necessarily need to. Like in the Jewish community, like the rabbis and the bankers, they only intermarry into other rabbi and other banker families. So that means if I'm a rabbi and you're a rabbi, my daughter is gonna marry your son. They're not gonna marry some random Jewish person out here on Topo Hills and No Druid Hill. I don't know them. I don't know if they following the Torah. I don't know if I give them a business loan, what they gonna do, etc. So we're gonna use this Jewish custom thing as a way to glue us together. That's why they think, you know, I'm just using them as an example, but that's why, like, you want the cream of your crop to be reproducing. Today it don't be like that. Like I said, a lot of brothers I know, they got like college degrees, they on their fitness, they trying to get their money right, and you can see they going somewhere in life. A lot of them don't be having children.
That's me right now.
You see what I'm saying? I don't have any children, and I ain't saying I'm some Superman, but a lot of my brothers, like I went to college with and stuff, I noticed that they don't. But a lot of niggas from the streets, gang banging, prison multiple times, and all this type of shit. Not only they have one, they got multiple children, and then with multiple women. See, Adolf Hitler wouldn't allow them niggas to reproduce. That's what I'm saying. Like, this shit ain't what we think. If I would have showed you some of the pictures of what them American Indian chiefs would do, how they would dismember people, how if a Seminole woman had a child with a European, that they would kill them. So these are the things that do to strengthen your nation. Our people not really ready for power. We too emotional. Power is not an emotional game. It's Machiavellian. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, shit, if our people can be at the top, then I was like, well, let's play that game then. But we ain't really there yet, because we don't, like I said, we you know, we're a little too emotional. And this is a very, very mature situation we talking about here. Like I said, that's not right to lead a woman out there to take care of all that alone. Like a lot of us may have grown up in a single household. That shit is not fucking cool. Mom dudes be like stressing. Like the woman ain't designed to deal with all that on her own, and that shit ain't fair. So we got way too many guys doing that, but a lot of the men are incentivized to do it. They'll say things like, oh, well, she come from a good family. Why? Just because they done came and colonized your land, and it's hard for you to be an entrepreneur, so you gonna take the easy route? Just like I was telling you earlier, some nigga that came and busted my window, and because he saw a bag in my car, wasn't nothing in the bag but my workout gloves, but he was stressed and something was going on in his life, and instead of him standing on 10 and dealing with the hardship on his own, he went and tried to play hot potato and put it on to somebody else. So that's what I say about being accountable. Like, as men, we gotta be accountable. We gotta look ourselves in the mirror. When you create a responsibility, you gotta be responsible for it. And if you don't, then the other responsible men in the community, they gotta see that shit as a poison. And when you got a cancer, what you do with the cancer? You cut it out. That's why the so-called black women be the way they are, because a lot of the guys let them get away with shit. So when you meet them, it be hard to deal with it, because the guy before her, he ain't had no standards. That make it hard for us to deal with each other sometimes. So yeah, it's like, that's why Adolf Hitler and the Jews and these folks that got power and understand, they know that this shit ain't fucking emotional. That's why they'll say, no, you're not gonna procreate. No, you are gonna go to school and do this or whatever. Or like how the Asian people are. In other words, like when black people always complain about what race they looking up to that's at the top, but y'all don't want to do the standards that them folks got. So it really boiled down to that, man. Like a lot of us, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, bro, like a lot of the best niggas I know, man, these brothers don't have no children. A lot of them don't want to get married. And I be thinking to myself, like, damn, but y'all actually the people the nation would need. But they don't have the incentive. You know, the black community don't be respecting education. That's why me and my boy ClayCo Ryan, we ain't fucking playing with y'all folks. We writing books in this shit. And I was knee deep in the streets. I did a lot of shit that these niggas be want to either rap about or glorify, any of that shit. Nah, I'm showing you they can be in the streets, but at home, I still was getting my schoolwork done. I still had an interest in that. So now we bringing that back. Like, you can be from the streets or have your culture or whatever, but you know, once you grow out of that, you extract what was good from them experiences. You take the skills that you learn from that, but at the same time, y'all, whether you in elementary, middle, or high school, you gotta be fucking doing that school shit. Because a lot of us come from communities where we don't know people that got white collar professions. Like I was telling ClayCo Ryan, I didn't know what accounting was until I turned 20. Because we don't be growing up around that stuff. So we need the school to give us enough time to figure out what's really going on in life, to where, you know, once you get in your 20s, then you can go out into the world. But it's like, man, when you just skip that school shit, you skip learning how to read, like basic math. Like I went to school, I got an accounting degree. Bro, accounting is adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. It ain't trigonometry and all that shit. But damn, if I didn't understand the basics of math, how was I gonna be able to do accounting? So that's what I'm saying. Like, you could be a nigga from Fulton County, Clayton County, DeKalb County, going to regular public education. But if you take the basis of what they giving you, man, you can like take all the way off. Go to a community college, a 4-year degree. You may turn up so much where you graduate high school and go straight into being an entrepreneur. You know, so, but I ain't gonna lie, like, yeah, that school shit, like, yeah, if you don't take that serious in one way or another, once you hit your 30s, that shit gonna start showing. And it's gonna show in a cutthroat fucking way, boy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Savage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so, yeah, man, this shit raw is real. And we in the deep waters of the alligator pit. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing but alligators around us. Either we gonna turn into an alligator and become a god amongst men, or we gonna keep walking around with our fucking head down like this shit in the 1910s or something. Them American Indians won't walk around with their head down. Niggas was walking around with their fucking chest up. Gold crowns on with feathers in it and shit like that. Sitting back smoking big tobacco. You know, the European come and gotta bow down to the chief. He gotta beg him to get a little piece of land on the coast of Georgia. He gotta beg him to teach him how to plant rice and to plant vegetables, because he don't understand the climate in Georgia. He ain't never been here.
Now we're gonna say this now too. Now,
yeah,
them boys down at them boys down in Savannah, them Geechee.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to tell people, you know, we do got some people holding that shit down for real. But that game, when we talk about the bootleg, I don't even want to really mention too much. But
right.
When we talk about those things, man, you know, a calling card to them brothers out there, to them families, man. Please, you know, do some tapping in, man. Come on.
Yeah,
I think we Tap in a little
Yeah,
bit.
we
You
do.
ain't even gotta tell me who you don't gotta bring me to your house.
Yeah.
I ain't, bro. You can talk to me from 4 people away.
Yeah.
Just. And you know what the thing is too, man? It's almost like my granddaddy growing up. He not talking about it or nothing like that. But his vibe is like, you gotta follow the breadcrumbs. So I do understand, like, it is some breadcrumbs out here, man.
Yeah, but see, that was your grandfather in his day. He didn't have access to the resources we did, and then that's what a man gonna do. A man gonna give you just enough, but he wants you to do the rest of it so you can get the fulfillment, and then you get that aha moment. See, me reading the article don't get the same powerful effect as you actually reading this article on your own. Then you get that. So we got this internet, and you know the stuff we're doing. We need to look into it on our own. But going back to what you said about the Boule thing and them folks looking out, like we spoke on, man. Like it go back to them so-called Black Europeans, the original. Like that's why they use that term, the so-called Black nobility, the Venetians. Like when you talked about Othello, which was a Shakespearean literature, rather. Othello was a Venetian general. Venice was a city inside of Italy. So why would Shakespeare depict, and he called him a Moor, a so-called Negro, or a so-called black man?
In the movies, I ain't gonna lie, that's the only black man in the movies, in movie history, they give you a black actor for. They gave you Morgan, Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne,
yeah.
He played off,
Othello. And he was running shit, but what did you have? You had the Caucasian boy who was trying to figure out how to move his way up in society. Because like I told you, these people used to be under the feudal system. Like that's when you get the term like a landlord. These blackamoors or these bronze completed people of Europe, they own the land and the Caucasian people pay rent to them. But what Shakespeare also was showing you is that Othello wasn't the only Venetian. He was surrounded by a whole nation of black Venetian people. Just like Satua. If the chief is a so-called black man, more than likely his whole tribe is what? So-called black people. Yeah. Why would he be ruling over some people that don't look nothing like him? Yeah. So it's the same with Othello. If Othello is a Venetian and he's being called a Moor, even though he got a Caucasian woman, all the other Venetians, they Moors too. The only thing that happened was, like we said, through the intermarrying, and you know, some of the Caucasian people came in and they adopted some of our cultures and nationalities and religions and practices and ways, and they started calling themselves what we are. Just like American, like if you don't have no grandma, like I said, I was like making some southern dish, you know, like my grandma used to some fish and grits or something like that. Like you ain't got no real southern roots, you ain't no American. Like I said, our people were here before the 13 colonies. So like the New Orleans people with the gumbo and all that, like if your folks weren't on nothing like that, sweet potato pie, you know what I'm saying, all our stuff that we eat on Thanksgiving, that was really our indigenous food. That's what an American is. Not no Native American. When I used to live in Arizona, and I've said this on the tape before, I met a 19-year-old guy who had lived on an Indian reservation his whole life. So when I met him, that was like the first year or two, he was off the reservation and he was living in like the city of Phoenix. So when I would ask him about the mounds and the pyramids, he said, our people didn't create that. We don't know nothing about that. Our ancestors don't tell us about that. That's not part of our culture. Because when you look at the Mississippi River, the people that was in the plains, or like what they call the like western states like Utah, Colorado, Arizona and all them, they had like black so-called Indians out there, but they had Siberian Mongoloids out there too. Mm-hmm. Like the people today we call Native Americans. But when you think of east of the Mississippi River, so that's like your Midwest, the South, the Southeast, and the Eastern Coast, the only American Indians that were there were so-called black for the majority. And when you started having a mixture with certain pale Europeans, that's now when you have certain Native Americans and they have a lighter skin complexion, and not like a light-skinned black person, but they look like mixed. But other than that, they was all so-called black. Like our folks that's from, like you say, Meriwether County, and my aunt who's 81 years old from Stewart County, Georgia, I asked her one day, I said, have you ever seen a traditional Native American person when you was growing up in the South? She said, I ain't never seen that. So that means
that's crazy.
So that means that they're not the Indians of like what we call Alabama and Georgia and the Carolinas and all that. Like these people, The people in the Western Plains, this is an image from Georgia.
But the finesse is, but that's when we talk about the Indian Removal Act, though.
The Indian Removal.
But when we talk about the Indian Removal Act, what kills it is the fact that the black people in Oklahoma was doing the Black Wall Street.
Facts.
That kind of what killed it. So even when you try to say, well, yeah, y'all don't see them because they was removed by Thomas Jefferson, so that's why y'all don't see them.
But I'm gonna tell you another trick with that though. They make you think they removed all the Indians on the land. They didn't. I guarantee out of 100% of the people that was on the land, the ones that left in the Indian Removal Act, bro, out of 100%, probably wasn't even 50% of them. Like, cause like, think about it. If your folks from Meriwether County, that's in South Georgia, right? Mm-hmm. My folks from Stewart County, that's South Georgia. I got a family cemetery where I can go back to the 1800s. If all the Indians left, then who them people is? Like, how did we get to be born then? So now only a small portion of us went to what we call Tulsa, Oklahoma, but majority of the Indians, they stayed right here in Georgia. The Civil War, like, a lot of us didn't leave, we stayed. Everybody didn't do the Great Migration and run to the big city. Some of us stayed right here and stood on 10. And another trick too is that the Ku Klux Klan wasn't going around doing all that shit like we thought. Like my older uncles and them, they was like, that shit ain't real. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? That shit was a fucking lie. You know, telling you, oh, they just ran all the black people off the land. And no, back then a lot of the Caucasian people were working with the melanated American. I was shocked when my ancestors told me that. You know, we would grow things and sell it to them and vice versa, whatever. And I'm not saying you had no racism going on and discrimination and Jim Crow. You did, but it wasn't as pervasive as mainstream media and narrative tells us, what pop culture and entertainment has told us, what the public education system has told us. Like they killed off all the Native Americans and they all died from smallpox. Get the fuck out of here. These people been here for millions of years and just a couple of dirty blankets got them out of here. A lot of this shit is historical Hollywood narrative. You know what I'm saying? So, but we're gonna go and bring this to conclusion, man. You know, we're gonna have some more of these open discussions. They're gonna continue to expand. We're gonna have more brothers coming in. And as I said, this shit turning up, you know. So all the original red sticks, the original American people, you know, like I said, let's let our tribal affiliations not divide us. You know, let's come together as Americans, really. And do your research on what an American is. Because an American is not some motherfucker who eat a hot dog on the 4th of July and have some red, white, and blue flag. That ain't it. Because you got niggas from all kind of countries here call themselves American now, but they're not. If I go to Afghanistan right now and put on a turban, that don't make me from Afghanistan. So you can't come to America and do something here and think that it just make you American. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, salute to our people. Y'all stay tuned and we out.